Hello and welcome to the Wednesday Roundtable edition of the VandySports Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Lee, joined by Billy Derrick and Luke Wyatt. We'll talk Vanderbilt sports. We got a lot of baseball talk, some basketball talk, and who knows what else. We'll get to the mailbag. Before we do all that, we like to thank the folks who help us out, starting with Anchor Impact. Billy, tell us please about Anchor Impact.
Yeah, Commodore Nation, you can get closer to Vanderbilt athletics than ever before with Anchor Impact. They're the official NIL collective for Vanderbilt University. Gain access to unmatched exclusive coverage and be part of a one-of-a-kind community. As an Anchor Impact member, you gain exclusive privileges and benefits, offering deeper engagement with student athletes, coaches, staff, and the entire Vanderbilt community. You also become a catalyst for change, redefining the landscape of college athletics and showcasing the potential impact of NIL on student athletes' lives. Join the mission of Anchor Impact to support student athletes and elevate Vanderbilt athletics to new heights. Help the Commodores thrive and contribute now by logging on to anchorimpact.com/register.
Baseball season is presented by Steve Andrews and our friends at the Wash House. If you're dreading laundry day, if it is stealing time for the things you enjoy, let the laundry professionals at the Wash House take care of that for you. With 2 convenient locations in the Nashville area, just drop off your dirty laundry and their professional attendants can give you back the one thing you can never have enough of. That is your time. Within 24 hours, you can pick up your nicely folded, fresh, clean laundry, ready to be put away. Check out washhouseclean.com. Stop in today, get your time back. They do a tremendous job. High integrity people, help out the folks who help our show. Show also brought to you by the Murfreesboro Pure Milk Company, a family-owned third-generation milk and ice cream company, distribution company located in Murfreesboro. The partnership began 50 years ago with Purity Dairy in Nashville to provide purity milk and ice cream to consumers in Middle Tennessee. They now serve Southern Kentucky, Northern Alabama, Chattanooga, North Georgia. They supply purity products, Mayfield, Nestle, Haagen-Dazs ice cream, a lot of good stuff there. Purity homemade vanilla is my go-to flavor, but Nestle, Haagen-Dazs, Mayfield make great stuff too. The Nestle, I feel like it's time for the little what do you call them? The chocolate covered with the crunchy stuff. You know what I'm talking about? The Nestle Crunch bars. Those are good. If you've never had one of those, that's a good summer treat. Visit their website at mpmci.com. Billy, I'll leave it to you to direct the topics today. I presume we want to go to baseball first because that's the hot topic, but basketball continuing to bring transfers in and then whatever folks want to talk about in the mailbag. But I'll leave it to you to where you want to go first here.
Yeah, let's start with baseball. Obviously, with no midweek game, and it feels like a lot of SEC teams don't have a midweek game this week. Tennessee was able to play Belmont last night. Kentucky actually canceled theirs against Wright State last night, I think conveniently for them. I don't think they had some thunderstorms up there. That was probably maybe a little bit of an RPI thing. We'll leave it at that. But guys, at the end of the day, this past weekend, I want to propose what did we learn? Because at least for me, I think this weekend could have gone one of two ways. One of them was you look at another sweep and a dominant sweep. But that didn't happen. And I think you look at Friday, for the most part, that game was competitive. Tennessee obviously had Cannon Peebles late entrance there and hits the home run and kind of puts the icing on the cake. But then Saturday was back and forth to an extent. It kind of felt like Tennessee was going to shut the door with a 2-run victory, but Vanderbilt gets so close to either tying or taking the lead. If Espinal's hit is into the gap, is 10, 15 feet higher, maybe Vanderbilt ties it. Maybe they take the lead. And Chris, but that was the bottom of the ninth, right? So that would have walked it off. So they didn't get great luck that they needed Saturday. Felt like they got it Sunday, and Tennessee's bats were quiet. J.D. Thompson and Devin Futrell, all of a sudden, and let's remember, this is the best offensive lineup in the country. I mean, A&M obviously is up there. You've got some other really good lineups. They shut them down. That's the first time they've been shut out this season. So I think that's really saying something. I think this was I feel weird saying this, Chris, but I feel like this was almost one of the best weekends for Vanderbilt in a weird way. I know they didn't win, but I think they could have easily won that Saturday game. And if we're looking at a 2 out of 3 series win, I think we're talking even more different about this team. So I know we had some people on the board, and how do you come away impressed after only 13 runs? Well, Tennessee scored, 14, 15? I mean, it's not like – yeah, I mean, it's not like this was a shellacking like game 2 last year in Knoxville, and Vanderbilt was just, swept off the face of the earth. They competed, and I think that's all really a lot of times when you're playing number one team in the country you can ask for. Now, it's Tennessee. It's different. You do expect to win. You want to win more than anything. But, Chris, I just think I came away impressed, even though some people may disagree with that.
Look, I get it, because we're at the point where it feels, I'm not going to say you're having to take moral victories in baseball, where that didn't ever used to be a thing, but it's just a different game right now for a lot of reasons. And none of those circumstances externally have been favorable to Vanderbilt and the way Tim Corbin has built this program. And look, I get that Tim Corbin is probably responsible for not reacting to some of that fast enough. So I'm not saying poor Vanderbilt, they're a victim and all this, but the truth is that it is the way you build teams is antithetical to how he wants to do it from a culture standpoint and a style of play standpoint. Number two, they have had as many guys hurt as any team in this league. Key guys hurt. We've been over that. I can go to it again in a minute. I've always been more of a process guy than I am an outcomes guy. No, look, their outcomes have not been great. They're 3 games under 500 in the league, need to get a win or two at Kentucky this weekend. And some of the weekends they've won, they've not been super impressive. But I mean, you go back and one pitch against Mississippi State and Tennessee. It's not really a different season, but you got different outcomes. You win that series. Think about this, guys, 2 pitches, and we're probably talking about a team that's hosting at this point. Yeah. Fairly or unfairly. But I mean, Vanderbilt hit 2 rockets in the 9th inning of the Tennessee game. Both of them were right at fielders. They lose a 1-run game. Mississippi State hits a rocket to win the game in that deciding game. So they're not that far away. Now, look, you also can't disregard the outcomes against A&M and Georgia, where they not only lost, they got their socks knocked off. But I also think the chances of running into something like that again are slim. I think the conditions favor hitting right now for a lot of things we could and probably won't go into to a ridiculous degree. For whatever reasons, the conditions favor hitting. They're not built like that. They played one of those teams that could have come in and scored 40 runs this weekend. They held them to whatever, 15, and darn near came out with a win. Look, I'm not telling Vanderbilt fans to be happy about this. What I am saying is that you get a start over in postseason, and if they get there, I just get there. I don't care if it's a 2 or a 3. You've got Carter Holton, Bryce Cunningham for the most part have pitched well. Throughout the Georgia and A&M things, which were just crazy. You got J.D. Thompson's pitching well. Devin Futrell had 2 great outings against really, really good hitting teams this week. Now, the bullpen's a different animal, but you get Ethan McIlvain back. It starts to look a little different. If David Horn can ever get healthy, if Sawyer Hawks can get healthy and throw, then you got some bullets in the chamber that you've not been used to having. And those are guys in your starting rotation that can carry you 6, 7, 8, even 9 innings at times. I think when you take the puzzle apart and have the pieces there and reassemble it, it might look a little – this is a contradiction in meaning here, but it might look a little different going forward than it's looked so far.
First of all, Chris, you stole my thunder on the comp with Mississippi State-Tennessee series. It was almost identical, except, Bryce Cunningham shuts out State on Friday 4-0, and then we shut them out 3-0 on Sunday. The other 2 games are very similar. So, like you said, a couple of different swings, and we're sitting here looking at 14 and 13 and just wondering who will host. I will say this. I think when you're pitching depth partially because of injury with Dukanich and some others, when you have to go to freshmen out of the bullpen, which the top 4 really out of the bullpen, except for Ginther, who's had kind of a disappointing stretch here. you're talking about 4 freshmen pitching against 24-year-olds a lot of times, the guys that are seniors and the power in this league. I was obviously not happy about losing 2 out of 3, but they outscored us totally by 2 runs. Actually, earned runs, it was 14-13. I think they hit 1 more home run than we did over the weekend. I think they hit 4, we hit 3. I think that's correct. I didn't. It was just baseball all weekend, and luckily, our starting pitching was awesome. I think if Carter had gone a little bit deeper in game 2, we definitely would have won that game. But it didn't happen. But we're in a situation now where I think if we win 1 at Kentucky and maybe 1 in the SEC tournament, we're solidly in.
Here's a good example, numbers-wise, of where Vanderbilt's pitching is with 1 weekend to go. And I'm sure you guys already know this, but just to put numbers to what everyone's talking about in terms of the bullpen struggles. Right now, Vanderbilt's conference-only starting pitching, 4.86 ERA, 3rd in the SEC, 139 innings pitched, which is actually 2nd in the SEC. So the starters obviously have pitched a lot. Bullpen, bottom of the pack, 6.93 ERA, and only 88 innings pitched, which is the fewest out of any team in the SEC, actually by a fairly wide margin. So that tells you they're not going to their bullpen guys as much as they probably should, but it's because of, like you said, Luke, the freshmen, guys like Ryan Ginther not necessarily performing. What's up with Sawyer Hawks? I would guess he's out for the season, or is that what's the deal there? I don't know if that's been clarified yet, Chris, or not, but getting McIlvain back, I think, could be huge. Luke Guth, we've seen him pitch well at times. Luke, like you brought him up, but he's also struggled because he's a freshman. So, Chris, I look at that bullpen, and offensively, it felt like they were able to turn some things around against Tennessee. If they can figure that bullpen out just a little bit, I don't know that they have to perfect that and come out here looking like a major league bullpen, but they can improve that slightly. I'm with you, Chris. I think this team potentially in a favorable matchup situation in a regional, preferably on the East Coast. It feels like they haven't gone on the East Coast in a while, probably 2018 when they went to Clemson. But favorable matchup, Chris, I'm with you. I think this team, all goes right, could make a run.
Let's stick with the pitching. I'm going to give you, well, I've given you where I think I see some hope. I still think that's 4 starting pitchers that can get you about as far as you need to go, just based on the rotation alone. Now, problem is the bullpen. I don't know who you trust anymore that's not a freshman. I think they've proven they can get some stuff out of Cyber and Green, but those guys have had some late game letdowns. And frankly, we're put in spots that probably freshmen shouldn't be put in, but they don't have a choice right now. Huseman is useful maybe for a batter or 2 in the right spot. Leboki, maybe. But I watch Ginther pitch. He doesn't look to me like a guy that's got any confidence. I watch Grayson Carter pitch. As good as that fastball is, I don't think he trusts anything else. I think they're kind of stuck there until somebody figures something out among the veterans, or they get an unexpected bill of health with the Hawks. Or I'm going to presume that David Horn has just not been 100%. I can't prove it, but he missed time with he just is not the same pitcher we saw last year. And I think when a guy's way off, I always suspect he's not 100%. I just think that's where they are. And I think they're either something needs to pop with some of those upperclassmen out of the bullpen, or they are very, very, very reliant on starting pitching.
Chris, you mentioned earlier in the year, the key to this team is R.J. Austin and Alan Espinal. And Espy's been up and down. He had a good game Sunday. R.J. Austin's been really the only consistent hitter during this stretch where they lost 6 or 7 in a row, whatever it was, conference. They've got to have some other guys step up. Davis Diaz has been very disappointing. Finally had to drop him out of the 3-hole down to the 9-hole. I'm glad they did that, because I do think that relieves some pressure off of him maybe as we move forward. But I think because of the bullpen issues, Now I will say this: in Hoover, we get to Hoover, depending on the weather and everything, you can get away with maybe throwing a Leboki or a Huseman some innings. Yeah. It happened last year when we won the whole SEC tournament. Some guys that didn't do well in the regular season really stepped up, including J.D. Thompson. So there's going to be somebody that maybe that will surprise you and pitch go 5 or 6 innings, and Grayson may be able to land his other pitches or something like that. So I feel good about where this team is right now. I even though they only won one of the against Tennessee, I think the way they won on Sunday, allowing only 3 singles to one guy, I think Dreiling had all 3 of their hits.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like that gave them a whole lot of confidence. And you have to tip your hat to J.D. Thompson, how spunky and he came out with an attitude, struck out the side in the first. I think that just kind of set a tone, and I think that's what they needed. Now, if we go to Kentucky and get swept, they're going to have to win the SEC tournament to get in, I think.
Yeah, I was going
to go ahead, Billy. I'm sorry.
I was going to bring up Cam Kojal as well and credit him because he's got an even better average than RJ Austin the last couple weeks. So Cam Kojal has really stepped into his own. But other than Kojal and Austin, you need other guys. I think Vastine, here or there. Same with Espinal. They need to be more consistent. Same with Matthew Polk, to be honest. And we talked about Diaz. Colin Barzy has kind of been snake bitten, and Corbin talked about it. He's hit some lasers, especially this past weekend, and even at Georgia. So I think Barzy's a guy to watch, just contact wise and getting a job done. For this team down the road, I think will be big. But I just I'm with you, Luke. I think on Sunday, the way they were able to finally get over that hump of beating Tennessee, maybe that does, bring them into this Kentucky series, motivated, confident, swagger, because Kentucky, maybe they can pitch, maybe they can get away with pitching to Leboki, Chris, at Kentucky as well, because that's more of a pitcher's park also. So you play in Lexington, then you play in Hoover, and then you'll have to likely go on the road for a regional. Getting to, barring anything unforeseen, we'll see if this team actually does get to Omaha. Then you've got some more favorable pitching atmospheres as well. But Chris, I do think they're in a good spot, but there's still the same weaknesses. But the bullpen is more glaring, almost honestly, than the hitting now.
Yeah, I think that's definitely – well, look, this is a flawed team. It's a very flawed team. It's got – we're sitting here. Usually most Vanderbilt teams, we're talking about a first-team All-American or two, an Austin Martin or a J.J. Bleday in the lineup, and, or a Brian Reynolds or somebody like that. And then you've got some top 10 pick in the draft as an ace and a sophomore who's going to be that next year. They don't have any of that. Now, I think they can have some top 100 guys in the draft on the pitching side, but there's no superstar. We talked about the bullpen. The margin for error is a lot different. And I want to bring this up, guys. I think the infield, Espinal at catcher, Austin at first, Vastine at short, you're fine with those guys. I think Vastine's been very underrated for his contributions offensively and defensively. Diaz, for all his faults, fields his position pretty well. And Kojal, I still think there's something there. We've seen it at times, right? It's the outfield where I just shake my head and I go, I don't know what to expect. Polk is slumped. Hewitt is slumped. We hadn't seen a Holcomb in, a week or two. Barzy keeps getting time, and I'm going to lump DH in with the outfield. Barzy keeps getting time. The production's been awful, but you can see some things with him.
Yeah.
Although he's got a 31% strikeout rate, and so you can argue you get enough in return. But I don't. Here's the thing, guys. I don't get. Now Jacob Humphrey's another guy. Now I think Humphrey's got a shot to make them better, and I suspect we're going to see him a lot more. So maybe that's an answer. But like Lanieve barely played all weekend. He's one of their most productive bats in an environment where you need bombs. The two guys who were their biggest power threats by far both sat parked in the garage. And I don't know what you make of that, Luke.
Well, I think Tim has decisions to make, and Tim is obviously by the way his roster is set up, he if you can't, defense gets you on the field, offense keeps you on the field. I think he's had so much inconsistency from all those guys you've mentioned that it's almost like just reaching a hat today and which three do I pull out? Yeah. I just think that, last year, if you remember at the end of the season, Troy LaNeve got hot. He hit a big grand slam against somebody toward the end of the year, and then he hit a bomb in Hoover that is probably still going. They're going to need something like that, a performance like that maybe at Kentucky, by not necessarily Troy, but maybe J.D. Rogers, like what he did at Georgia last week. That's the thing. Where do you fit these guys in? The one kid that I feel like is almost like, well, I'm almost through with my career, and I don't mean to be this is going to sound critical, but it's not. Who has gone more backwards than anybody is Calvin Hewitt.
Yeah.
I really expected more out of Calvin this year. I thought he would be a solid and stay in the outfield every game, but he's really, really struggled. The base running at times befuddles me. We get picked off a lot. That type of stuff, that's got to be behind us at this point. I'm excited about the fact that we didn't have a midweek game. I think Tim does a great job getting them in the classroom, film, talking to the guys about approach at the plate before we go to Kentucky. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say we win a couple this weekend in Lexington, because the pressure's all on them, really. Even though we got to win a game, they're trying to win the Southeastern Conference. So that's a little bit more pressure than what we're under, I think.
Yeah, that Kentucky's in rare air, Chris. I mean, when's the last time they won the SEC East in baseball? I mean, they've got a chance to do that this weekend.
They've done it a time or two, but it's been a minute. I want to say they won one middle part of 2 decades ago, but I can't remember. I mean, they've had their moments, but this is not something. And like even when they did, nobody was there to really notice. This is different. You've got fans in the park, but I mean, again, it's not a bad matchup for Vanderbilt. It's not a home run hitting team. It's a team that'll try to run, which makes Espinal and what he can do behind the plate a big thing. It's not an overpowering team. Their starters have got strikeout rates of 23%, 20, and 20. Now you don't get home runs against it, but that's not really what Vanderbilt does anyway. So,
Ryan.
No, they're better in the bullpen. They've got more experienced, productive arms than Vanderbilt's got. But this is not. I mean, I would much rather, if I'm Vanderbilt, play Kentucky than Georgia, A&M, Tennessee, probably anywhere, just based on lineup construction.
Agree.
Yeah, Ryan Waldschmidt's their thumper, and I know they've got a couple other guys. It's a good team. I watched that that whole Tennessee series against Kentucky. I've watched Kentucky a lot. Really good team, well coached, but stylistically similar to Vanderbilt. And I don't think Vanderbilt's going in here, saying, "Uh-oh, here we go again on the road." This is a little bit different. Number one, the park dimensions, and two, like you mentioned, Chris, that they stylistically the same. But also Kentucky's antics. And Jack Caglione had a comment after the game, after Florida lost that series. He did not like Kentucky's antics in the dugout. So Vanderbilt might need another J.D. Thompson performance, to potentially win the series, like you said, Luke. I think I can see that happening. But this is going to be another weekend where Vanderbilt's going to have to have some alphas step up. That has been rare this year, but you saw it with J.D. Thompson and even Devin Futrell. I want to make sure to mention Devin Futrell as well.
Well, Jack Caglione saying someone's cocky, he needs to check himself at the door. So I don't pay any attention to that. I know what he's talking about. There was a thing with Devin Burks got mouthy with the catcher and that type of thing. But, hey, that kind of stuff doesn't bother me. As long as you can back it up, it's okay.
Well, look, the kinds of teams that have usually given them trouble, or Florida used to be the mouthiest team around. That might be replaced by Tennessee. They played those two teams, and they didn't. I felt like that didn't get in their heads as much as maybe it did in the past. Maybe I'm making a narrative that, just to make some sense of something, but they have had some experience in playing teams that'll do that kind of thing. So I think you've got to feel a little better about that.
Right.
And Vanderbilt has, we like to say a team owns another team a lot. I think you could argue Vanderbilt has owned Kentucky under Tim Corbin. I'd love to know the record, Tim Corbin's record against Kentucky, in his time. So just the comfortability. I know Kentucky came in here last year and really fought. I can't remember if they won that series or not, Chris. I don't think they did.
No, Vanderbilt swept them last year, but they were all close games.
You're right. Yeah, they were all close. They were competitive. So the last few years, Kentucky's been competitive. So that'll be interesting to see. Kentucky will have motivation, but Vanderbilt, like you said, Luke, they're fighting for their season.
Yeah,
Kentucky's got one double-digit home run guy. That's Nicholson. He's got 16. Waldschmidt is next with 9. Anyway, sorry, Luke. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say Tim doesn't take a back seat to many. I think he's got a losing record against A&M and against Florida, and that's it. Everybody else, I think Carolina, they're even with Carolina. He's 30-5 against Missouri. I know that. And I think he's something like 41-20 against Georgia. I mean, he's eight ahead of Tennessee. There's nobody really close to him except for those two teams, Florida and A&M.
Yeah, it's a big weekend for Vanderbilt baseball, of course, Chris. But we do have some basketball stuff. Not a ton, but Kijani Wright from USC recently committed. Joey and I got into this a little bit. So I'll kind of give this over to you guys. He averaged 4 points, 3 rebounds a game in his sophomore year at USC. He was a former McDonald's All-American. He won a gold medal. He started all 6 games for Team USA in 2019 at the U16 championship. So highly touted. And Joey has a great piece on him with all kinds of background stuff on the site if you want to read into him. He's the latest guy. And I guess now, the AJ Hogard watch continues. And for him this feels like Hogard would be, if he does commit, the last guy. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe there's some more shifting to go on. But because it's the last guy, I would caution people to get nervous just because they don't have, they're not racing against the clock really anymore. And I do think, from what I've heard, I mean, the feeling is good. Nothing's happened. But Kijani Wright, I think, Chris, is a nice piece. He's not Van Allen Lubin, and that's what Joey and I got to. He doesn't have the skill set of Van Allen Lubin, but just getting a body. They needed a body. And I think they got one. 6'9", 230, 240. He's physical. He's mobile. He's a great motor type guy. So I think they needed that. And now you've got some depth in the front court with Jalen Carey as well. And then who was the other guy that got in the front court? Can't remember as of right now. But Carey. McLaughlin, yeah. McLaughlin, Carey. And now Kijani Wright all of a sudden looks decent. So I think with that, Chris, you look at it, again, he's not Van Allen Lubin, but now you turn your attention to AJ Hogard to see if they can put an icing on the cake of this class.
Yeah, I'm looking at per 40 minutes last year, and the numbers are a little underwhelming. Almost 9 boards a game. That's not bad. 13 points a game. That's okay. And he actually shot the ball pretty well, 58% field goal percentage. So he's not inefficient. Now he blocked less than 1 shot per 40 minutes, which you'd like more than that out of your big guy. Fouls were down last year, stayed on the floor a little bit more. So there's also that. I mean, look, this to me looks like a 9th or 10th guy on your roster on paper kind of thing. So I'm fine with that. I don't have any big expectations, but I guess you can say, if he turns out to be the guy that everybody thought he was out of high school, then you've really nailed something. So I think it's a fine addition. I don't have my hopes super up about this, but and here's another thing: defensive rating last year 111. That's not great for a team that struggled to defend a year ago. And I also wonder, Southern Cal was a team that had loaded up on big time talented guys, and sometimes when you see a team where the record and the talent don't match, you presume there's some kind of chemistry issues. I don't know if he was if that were the case, if he were a part of it or just a victim in it. But I guess that's a lot of stuff to say where that's a guy I like as a piece on the roster. I'm not sure if the upside is what we thought of it. And, maybe a year from now we're going, hey, should have seen it coming. Guy in his 3rd year, they've been a McDonald's All-American, but the production does not suggest that's what he is right now.
Yeah, I think with Wright, obviously you'd rather have Van Allen Lubin if they stand them side by side. However, I think with this offense, with the rest of the pieces, Villanova Lubin wouldn't have scored as much as he did last year because of the rest of what's going to be surrounding him this year. He was forced to score last year. He was Vanderbilt's really a lot of times their first or second option. You had Ezra, him, and that was it. And if you didn't get all three of them scoring, they'd get beat by 20. So I think with this team, that position is more play defense, get rebounds, and don't get in foul trouble, and do your very best to guard whoever the other big is. That position is probably the least important in Byington's system.
Yeah, and Joey and I talked about it too. It feels like this is going to be a team that is, that kind of the sum of the parts type. I know they're going to have, Jason Edwards, obviously we think will score a good bit. Tyler Nickel probably, if they get Hogarth's not even really a light you up scorer type. He's more of a, he got close to a lot of triple doubles at Michigan State. So he's, and almost kind of a Jordan Wright type of guy where you can, great defender, kind of a Swiss Army knife. Now we'll see if they end up getting him, but this team, that if the parts fit together, this team can be pretty good, I think. Now, these summer months, and I told Joey this, that are going to be so important because if they're able to quickly gain that chemistry and build that chemistry, everything's going well off the court as well, then I think, guys, this team can be pretty good. I don't know what pretty good means quite yet. Does that mean a tournament berth? Does that mean NIT? I think we'll see. But, again, I don't want to shy away from talking about how good this has been from Byington. This easily could have gone downhill, and there could be, a lack of excitement heading into the season for Vanderbilt fans, but I don't think there is, guys. And again, I want to temper still. I'm not saying this is a tournament team or anything, but this is going to be a lot more well-coached, probably a more competitive team, probably a tougher team too. I mean, Byington has talked about toughness. That's what I think about with this, Luke. And I just, even a guy like a Kajani Wright, he looks like a physical guy. They got more physicality, it almost looks like to me, and Carey. And they've also got one of the best strength coaches in the country with Coach Sanderson. And so I told Joey this, the staff has done a tremendous job. So you got to give credit to them as well. But it'll be interesting. Hogarth watch continues. I think that's the last step here. Again, maybe there's some more fluctuation. Maybe they end up picking up somebody else. But yeah, I do think that would probably be the last step for this. So that's kind of the basketball stuff. Chris, you guys want to hop into the mailbag?
Let's do that. I'll let you pull it up, and then I'll give credit to the people that make this possible. As always, Sutherland and Belk has been our mailbag sponsor for as long as we've had a mailbag. Family-owned injury law firm. If you or a loved one's been hurt in an accident, give Taylor or Russell a call, 615-846-6200. See what your rights are and if they can help. Also presented by John Levin and the Maynard Nexus Government Contracts Group, which advises government contractors on all aspects of their needs with a proud focus on matching legal solutions to business needs. Got their very own Chris Lee. Wonder how versed he is on SEC baseball this time of the year. Maybe we'll ask him. But anyway, all kidding aside, thank you to the folks who helped make this show possible.
Hey, Luke, we brought up Tim Corbin. He doesn't take a backseat to anybody in SEC baseball. Neither do you, Chris, in terms of, I mean, you're the guy with this time of year for SEC baseball.
Yeah.
It's not from lack of doing homework. If I miss something, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about season ticket sales. Vandy Nashman is the first question. Any idea how season ticket sales are going with football and basketball? It's probably a question for Luke. Obviously, we did see something that they're sold out in the north end zone that will be available this year. But I don't know if there's any other details yet, Luke, that you can speak to.
No, I haven't asked Michael West any questions. I'll see him pretty soon, so I'll maybe buy him lunch and bend his ear a little bit.
There we go. Yeah, and then basketball.
North end zone's only a few hundred seats, isn't it?
It's like 700 or 800.
Yeah,
but 700 or 800 fans would be nice.
Yeah, basketball, not sure. I mean, obviously, I would expect it to be better than probably what it was going into last year.
You had basketball fans sitting on the sidelines because they couldn't wait for a coaching change. So I'll see how many of them are around to come back.
That's an interesting point, Chris. I mean, because a lot of the last 4 or 5 years, all we heard was, "I'm not going back in the Memorial until a coaching change is made." Well, a lot of those people are gonna have to, prove themselves right, by coming back, because there was a coaching change. So I will be very interested to see that, actually.
I'll tell you one thing I am concerned about. You got a 3,700 seat baseball stadium. And I get that Tennessee fans are hanging from they're crazy in terms of their passion. And I don't mean that disparagingly. They just are. That is, I would say, higher on their list of priorities than it is a lot of the people that have season tickets at Vanderbilt. Again, it just is. But I think the overall decline of the athletic department and the shrinking of the fan base, gosh, can he not get 4,000 people, mostly black and gold, in your own ball? It could have been a lot worse, but Luke, you get what I'm saying. I mean, I just think that the erosion of everything has. I think that's a weekend that they should have had. There should have been about 100 Tennessee fans in the building. And they should have been parents of kids and stuff, and it should have been loud, and it should have been every seat filled. Any other place that would have happened, and it doesn't happen here anymore. And that's in the sport where they've, been the best program in the country for a decade until the last year or two.
Well, part of that, Chris, is Tennessee's ranked number 1. And Tennessee fans are like a lot of fans first of all, there's more Tennessee fans in Nashville than there are Vanderbilt fans, obviously.
Sure.
Alabama fans than there are Vanderbilt fans. But the thing with Tennessee is, and you can go back and look at the attendance for games in football, basketball, and baseball. When they think they're going to win, they show up. If they think you got, they don't show up. They're kind of like,
yeah.
You
are 100% right about that.
Where I sit above Corbin. I had like 4 or 5 around me that normally aren't there. I had some Vanderbilt students actually that sat in the wrong seats, and they brought their dad, who was from Knoxville, had on a Tennessee hat. Even though he's sent his kids to Vanderbilt, he had on a Tennessee hat. So, what are you going to do? You live in this state, unfortunately, around a bunch of Tennessee fans. That's just what it is. And when they're good, they're going to be there.
Yeah, I will say, when both were in the top 10 a couple of years ago, last time Tennessee came, Vanderbilt fans did a heck of a job of keeping them out. And you're right, Luke. Tennessee's number 1 this year. Vanderbilt slipping at the time and currently right now. They might have gotten pride back on Sunday this weekend, but I kind of expected the crowd that I saw. Friday night was probably the best showing. Saturday got worse. Saturday, after Christian Moore's home run, that angle that looked like a Tennessee home game with the outfield and then the right field line. I know Vanderbilt dominated the behind the plate and the left side of the infield, of course, and also the color. I mean, black doesn't stand out. I mean, that's, right. They all wear orange, and they make a point to do that. So that's another part of it. Okay. Bex 4VU, please let us know who y'all think will be drafted from the baseball team this year and in approximately which rounds. That's a good one. Well, I think Carter Holton's going to get drafted. Probably second round, I would say, maybe even third, but probably second. Bryce Cunningham will probably get drafted. Maybe same thing there as Carter, second, maybe third. Grayson Carter's a really interesting one. He's got the tools, but he really hasn't produced this year. He probably ends up getting drafted, but a little bit later. And then after that, I think Espinal and Vastine will get drafted. Definitely not second or third round, but up there. I think they've done well for themselves. And then pitching wise, Chris, I mean, you look at it, does Dukanich get, how much of a look does he get? I mean, he hasn't really been healthy. So yeah, that's kind of where I would go so far.
Dukanich should get picked, and he'll never throw a pitch here again just because of the talent. That's how it goes. Futrell will be interesting. I think Futrell will get picked. I mean, he could benefit by coming back and getting a little better, getting a little healthier. So that one would be interesting. I don't know if Huseman's draft eligible or not. I can't remember. Maldonado, that would be an interesting. I think, I don't know. I wouldn't think somebody would use a ton of draft capital on him. Diaz will get picked, I think. Might be around 13 or 14. I just think he doesn't hit the ball hard, but defensively he's good and was a guy that had a lot of potential coming in. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's going to be first rounders in it. Holton and Cunningham are the two guys, and maybe Carter. Somebody will take a chance on Carter just because he throws 103. But yeah, I don't think there's any first rounders. Who knows? Maybe not a second rounder this year.
There's a guy that just made his major league debut, Tyler Ferguson, who pitched for us. That's Grayson. Yeah. That's what Grayson will be. Someone will take a chance. If you can throw 102, they're going to take a chance on you. And it may be once they get him harnessed and he figures it all out, you may see him in the bigs in about 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dukanich is probably the most interesting one because if he does if he doesn't like the slot. Now, again, you're probably right about him, Chris. But I mean, I
don't think he's going to pitch next year. So
you're saying he was not going to pitch either way at Vanderbilt next year.
I mean, the only scenario that I see is if he sits out, doesn't get drafted a spot he likes this year, doesn't get drafted a spot he likes next year, and then says, hey, let's roll the dice in year 4 and see. I just don't see that happening. I would be stunned if you see him throw a pitch at Vanderbilt again, whatever circumstance.
Right.
I agree.
Okay. Let's go to JC32VU. If we were to redo the coaching search, knowing what you know now about Byington, would he be your top candidate? I mean, hindsight's 2020. I think all of us would probably say yes about that. I don't know. That is a really good question.
I see it this way. He was a candidate, like sometimes, and it was the opposite with Stackhouse. You're like, boy, I don't know about that. And then the more you looked into it immediately, and the more the first month went, you're like, this is awful. With Byington, it was more like, okay, I'm not sure about this. I can see some things. And then the more you looked into it, the better it got at every turn. And the better it's gotten in the 6 weeks or whatever it's been since. I think everybody's in the honeymoon phase with Mark Byington right now, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That it's good that people have got something to be excited about and looking forward to. But I think there gets to be a little bit of a halo effect. There were some other good candidates out there. I mean, I still think that Bucky McMillan at Sanford probably would have killed it here. I don't know if he was better than Byington, but I don't know that he's worse. Look, the thing I've said along, all you could do is get yourself on the radar of 3 or 4 really good candidates. Danny Sprinkle was a guy that was sort of involved at one point. Obviously, Chris Mack. I mean, I feel like this time they did their diligence and they identified several guys and they picked one of them. So I don't know. I don't think that I'm not convinced he's the best guy, but I think he's a guy that the selection was very defensible at the time, and it looks better with every passing minute.
Look, with the portal and NIL and all that, it's such a different game now. Rosters turn over every year. This is the hardest thing. Chris, I'm sure y'all do your predictions every year. How in the world, even when you know who's on the roster now, how do you know how it's going to gel? How's it going to fit?
Yeah.
There's just so many question marks that there used to not be. You used to only have to guess on a team that may have lost 2 or 3 guys. Now you're guessing on teams that lose 8, 10, or sometimes their entire roster. So we don't know. Personally, just from what I've seen out of Byington and what I know about Byington, I think his level is going to be as good as Kevin Stallings when he was rolling. That'd be my measuring stick right now.
Yeah, I think he would still be my top candidate because he fits and he wants to be at Vanderbilt. He was excited about Vanderbilt. I mean, you could tell he was giddy in the press conference. I mean, he's a grinder. They needed a grinder. Not saying that any of the other coaches, Josh Schertz would have been a grinder. Chris Mack would have been a grinder. Pat Kelsey. There were a lot of really good options. Danny Sprinkle. But what's going to be interesting to see is, for example, Danny Sprinkle at Washington in the next few years. How does he compare to Byington at Vandy? Josh Schertz at St. Louis, or does he even stay at St. Louis? Dusty May at Michigan. How do all these coaches compare to each other? And then I think we'll get a really good read on, how good of a hire it was. I mean, like you said, Chris, honeymoon phase. It's easy to say that now, but I do think the next 3 years is going to be telling, and we'll be able to compare them to coaches like that. So that'll be interesting. And then he had a second part, or are there are other candidates you would still have rather had than him? We mentioned some of the other candidates. Steve Lutz was another interesting guy at Oklahoma State that was brought up. But all these guys got snatched up. I mean, it was competitive. So yeah, I think we got into that. Okay. Lameeks, sorry to ask again, what is the status of Ethan McIlvain?
Asked yesterday, still don't know.
Yeah, so nothing official there. I would guess he pitches this weekend, Chris. I mean, I could be totally wrong. Maybe it's a Hoover type thing. We just don't know. So TBD there on McIlvain. Yeah, so not sure there. Let's see. Same question regarding Jaden Davis. My gut tells me he's done for the year. I got a look, actually. I don't know if you guys noticed. I guess you were at the game, Luke. Chris, I don't know if you were watching. They showed him and his face on the TV broadcast. And, yeah, I mean, it looked fine, but you could tell, there was some damage there. And you feel for the guy. I mean, best hitter on the team. And so I would say done for the year. I don't know if you guys think differently there.
If we make it to a regional, I think you might see Jaden Davis pinch hit or something.
What about the mental aspect?
Well, that's the thing.
I'm just saying. I mean, there's the health, but also the getting back in the box after that's happened to you.
Well,
I'm sure Jaden Davis got a lot more mental toughness than I do, but I'm just thinking through how I'd think through it.
Well, the first thing you do is, when Dansby got hit, the extra piece on the helmet, that would slide. You can even actually put a cage on, like softball girls wear. You can put that on his face, so that would help a lot with that. But and Billy, you don't remember this, but Chris, you will remember a guy by the name of Conigliaro that played for the Red Sox. That
was before my time, but I know that story.
You know the story. Yeah, so it can go either way. But I think with a kid as tough as Jaden Davis is, and he's tough as pig iron, I think he'll be ready to step back in there tomorrow.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting, that regional prediction there. I mean, because he is the best hitter on the team, at least statistically. So, okay. Stallier Hawks is another we got a question about. Again, I'm kind of mystified by that, Chris. I don't know that we've got anything official there. Maybe it just hasn't panned out. I mean, I don't know.
They don't really give you a lot of updates. You can ask a little bit, and then they might give you a little bit. But that just feels like a guy. I think they said he'd thrown again, and I know people say, well, Sawyer Hawks wasn't any good. Who cares? Well, when a guy's numbers are so far off what they were before, I'm going to guess injury factored in. In other words, it wasn't like he was pitching and then all of a sudden, bam, he got hurt. My guess is he wasn't 100% all along, and then it just got to the point where he couldn't pitch. So I don't really judge Sawyer Hawks by the numbers he's put on paper as much as I do by what he did before if he's healthy. So, I mean, I don't know. Again, they don't give you a lot, but I think he's a guy that, like, in the right circumstance could help them maybe a lot. Who knows? But I just don't know if he's going to.
Well, I think Tim is like a lot of coaches. When a kid says he's ready and he's throwing or whatever, and of course, kid's going to be anxious to get back out there. I think what happens is with Sawyer and maybe Ethan, and what happened with Bulger, if you say you're ready now, we're going to give it another week. And I think that's what we're at with Sawyer, because he is throwing. Tim did say throwing.
Okay, B3 Vandy. Here's a good baseball question. What positional players will Vanderbilt be going after in the baseball transfer portal? Not sure right now. Like you said, Chris, if Davis Diaz gets drafted, Obviously, you'll need a third baseman. If Vastine gets drafted, you're going to need a shortstop. Second base, Jaden Davis will likely come back, so he'd be there. First base, you think Chris Maldonado comes back, but maybe Chris Maldonado moves over to the left side. Vanderbilt's a tough program to predict in that way because there is so much fluctuation. I still think they need a guy like a Spencer Jones or a J.J. Bleday, right side of the infield or right field, preferably first base or right field. That is at least 6'4", 230, 240, and is a bopper. Now, maybe that's Braden Holcomb. Maybe Holcomb ends up playing right field and can be that. But they will need some portal impact players. I don't know if y'all have positions in mind. I'm just thinking offensively, get some bats. So that's what I would say there. Are we going to go after an ace pitcher and a home run hitter in the transfer portal this year? Again, home run hitter, I think so. The pitching side of it, Chris, is interesting. I mean, they picked up Huseman, but none of the pitchers this year have been impact. None of the pitcher portal guys they got have been impact makers, really. So, I don't know. I think their pitching staff, you'd like to think they're fine with their own homegrown guys, but maybe you get a closer. I don't think they would turn down another weekend starter if he's out there. They wanted Paul Skeens originally, so I don't think they're not trying. I just think maybe, you need to think a little bit differently. But the pitching side of it, guys, is a little bit different to see. Okay, we know they definitely need bats. Pitching wise, though, what does that look like?
I think you could easily see Green and McIlvain in the rotation next year. I said McIlvain for sure. Green, I'm not as sure what the durability is or isn't. I think it's there. I think he's had some 2 or 3 inning outings, so I don't see why not. Brendan Cyber could be another guy. But if you do that, then you really got holes in the bullpen. I think what they really need, they clearly need 2 or 3 guys who can come in and give them
long relief,
30 to 40 innings of a 3.5 ERA or under, where they didn't really have that this year. I mean, maybe you find a guy to, you find a couple of stud starters, and then McIlvain is your Swiss Army knife, the guy that could be a starter, or it could be a guy that comes in the third inning of a 2-2 game with the bases loaded and nobody out and gets you through the 8th or whatever. I think you just assemble the pieces and then figure out where they fit. I think offensively, they definitely need left side of the infield help. And other than that, it's not, to me, position, it's traits. You need power. Do you fit them at a corner spot? Do you fit them at DH? I don't care. Just make it work.
Well, guys, when you go after a Skeens and a Montgomery and you finish second, it's like that's horseshoes and hand grenades. It doesn't matter. If you don't get them, you don't get them. Might as well finish 10th. So I think there's a kid that I'm going to put a little pressure on here. I think is going to step up big time after a year in the weight room is Luke Guth. I love stuff. I think he's going to be a big piece out of the bullpen, or maybe as a midweek starter or something. But I think you're going to see 2 or 3 portal pitchers. The only 2 we had in the portal this year, one of them got hurt and the other one was Levi, Sawyer Hawks and Levi. That was it. So they didn't really hit it. I think you're going to see at least that many, if not 3 or 4 more pitchers. And from the power, guys, I don't know what the deal is with Austin Ford. Holcomb has seen his at-bats, but he's really struggling with the breaking ball and the strike zone. So, if those 2 do great this summer, you've got 2 power guys. But are they going to step up? We don't know. You don't know. So you need to go at least get a guy like an RJ Shrek, at very least that.
Yeah, best case, you've probably got Holcomb playing right. At first, you've got Ossenfort, and at third, you've got Maldonado if Davis Diaz leaves. Shortstop, do they go try to find a shortstop? That might be a question there.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's probably what they'll do.
Guys, Holcomb has struck out 38% of his 81 plate appearances, and Ossenfort has struck out in half of his 12. That's your issue, I think.
Yeah.
Logan Poteet, another guy to watch that we've seen.
Could be your catcher. Probably will be.
Yeah. But we are a ways. Let's finish this year first for all that portal stuff. Okay, last one here, football. First football question today. Do you believe Coach Clark Lee will be fired if we only win 2 games with no SEC wins this year? Will he? I don't know. Should he? Yes. Just because we've talked about it, the security, the job security that is there. But I don't think we'll have to worry about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think he would have to show that they're really going to be a player in the portal, that he's figured it out. That's I think if he wins 2 games, you're probably getting a coaching change, but that might be the one get out of jail free card on that kind of a season.
I'll tell Clark if he wins 2, I'm firing him. So, I tell you, guys, as far as wins and losses, I've been through it when I was at Vanderbilt. I knew we had a decent team under some of Bobby Johnson's teams and some of Mason's teams that didn't win a lot of games. How you play has a whole lot to do at Vanderbilt, unfortunately. I hate to say that, but and I'm not saying 2 wins won't get him fired and shouldn't get him fired. I'm not saying that at all. But this team, I think when you're talking about he's replacing the entire offensive line pretty much. You're going to see 4 brand new starters on the offensive line, I think. The guys that played last year will probably, except for Hansen, will probably be depth pieces, which is great.
Hansen will be a guard.
Yeah, I think they move him inside, and the kid from Liberty will be the left tackle. So, again, it's always injuries in football and always the depth piece. So, I think we're going to win 4. I think we'll figure out 4 somehow.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question though. That will be that's funny, the response there, Luke. Okay, that's I think that's what we've got, unless one more trickled in here. Yep, that's it, Chris.
All right. Thanks for joining us. We'll do this again. Well, I say we'll do it again next week. I don't know. I probably will be in Hoover, but we'll do something sometime.
Chris live from Hoover.
We could do that. Let you run it from the cozy confines of Billy's bedroom. Let me just do it from wherever. But anyway, we'll figure something out. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube, your podcast feed, wherever you get these, and then you'll know when we do. So Luke's got something. He's got his hand up.
I do. A couple of things I wanted to mention. I want to congratulate Aliki Sabonis and the women's tennis team for finishing Sweet 16, upset Ohio State on their campus. And also good luck to the men's golf team who are killing it right now in their regional.
Yeah. All right. Good luck to those teams. Again, thank you for listening. This is Chris Lee for Billy Derrick, Luke Wyatt. This has been the VandySports Podcast.